The International Association for Near-Death Studies presents NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Witting.
Welcome to NDE Radio, brought to you by IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I'm your host, Lee Witting. It seems appropriate that on this Easter Monday, our guest should be Sharon Milliman. She's the author of A Song in the Wind, a Near-Death Experience, and she has felt a profound love for Jesus for most of her life, and especially as the result of her 3 near-death experiences and numerous encounters with him on earth. Sharon was born in Ohio as the middle daughter of 3 girls. She's married, has 2 adult daughters, and lives in West Virginia. After retiring from her job in banking, Sharon became involved with the foster care program and has volunteered for many years at area hospitals and churches. She also spent several years as a home health caregiver caring for her parents, specifically her mother, who passed away from end-stage Alzheimer's. Sharon has had 3 near-death experiences. The first occurred at the age of 13 when she drowned while taking swimming lessons. In 2005, Sharon was struck by lightning while talking on a cordless phone. And during her NDE, Sharon went to heaven and was greeted by her 2 brothers who had died as babies. She had a life review and saw and spoke with Jesus. And after her conversation with Jesus, he walked her to a wooded glen where she sat with God. They had a very lengthy conversation where much love and wisdom was imparted. Sharon's 3rd near-death experience happened November 3rd, 2016, while she was undergoing emergency surgery. Sharon's written a book about her experiences, titled A Song in the Wind, a Near-Death Experience. Sharon, welcome to NDE Radio.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, and it's a remarkable book, especially how it describes your connection and your communication with Jesus. But I thought because of our limited time today, we might begin by describing what happened to you during your first 2 near-death experiences.
The swim instructor wanted me to dive head first in the 10-foot section of the pool, and I couldn't do it. I was really afraid to do it, and I had watched all the other kids diving head first, and they came out of the pool okay, but for some reason I was just too afraid to do it, and I kept telling him I just couldn't do it, and he told me, he said, well, either you're going to do it or I'm going to throw you in. And
oh, gee.
He did. He threw me in. And I just panicked once he did, and I took in a bunch of water, and I ended up sinking to the bottom of the pool. And what happened was I'm laying at the bottom of the pool, and there was this beautiful light. I have to say that after I had taken in the water, I felt absolutely no pain whatsoever. So I'm laying at the bottom of the pool, and I felt like this, I was like wrapped in this blanket, and I felt cocooned, and it was really warm, and I saw this beautiful light that looked like, at first it looked like a bright light bulb, and this light kept getting bigger and bigger, and it kept getting, I don't know if I was going up to it or it was coming down to me, but it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and all I could feel was this immense love coming from this light. And what else was really different, I was 13, so I had no words to describe it really, but my mom was in the balcony where all the other parents were, which is on the opposite end of the pool, and I could see her face as if she was like right in the pool with me or right above me, and I could see the horror on her face, and I could hear her screaming. And then there was another woman lifeguard, and she had the 2- and 3-year-olds, and she was at the other end of the pool, the shallow end, and I heard her screaming at the my teacher, and I heard her say, "Bob, go in and get her." And then I could see my teacher's face, and he was like frozen solid. He couldn't move. And then I heard all these children screaming and yelling and crying, and I could, but of course I'm on the bottom of the 10-foot pool, and it was really odd how I could see all this stuff happening, but yet I'm on the bottom of the pool. And at the same time, this light was just getting closer and closer and closer, and I was feeling all this love from this light, and I just felt warm and cocooned and no pain whatsoever. And then all of a sudden I heard this metal door slam shut, and then I began to feel all this horrendous pain, because what had happened was the lifeguard on the other end of the pool, who had the middle-aged children, he had jumped in, and he was pulling me out of the water. And he was doing the Heimlich or whatever it was that he was doing to get all the water out of me. I was coughing up.
Do you think that slamming sound that you heard was you're coming back into your body?
Yes. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but now, after many years of and having all these other near-death experiences, I know that's what it was.
Yes.
But the only memory I have after that was being laid down on the concrete, and I was looking up, and I saw all these feet, everybody's legs, and he had laid me down on the side of the pool and was working with me to get me to breathe again. And
yes. Now, Sharon, your second near-death experience came many years later, and you were married and talking on a cordless phone. Let's jump to that one, because this is a very much more detailed and exciting NDE, actually.
Well, that happened in 2005, and I was sitting out in my backyard, and I was talking on a cordless phone, and it had begun to rain, and I had asked my husband, who was an electrician, he worked in an area plant, and I had asked him, my husband at the time, was it okay if I had talked on the phone while it was raining, and he said it was okay, so I just continued talking, and then I heard this loud crack, and the lightning bolt came out of the sky and hit my right arm, and then traveled underneath the house and blew out the transformer that was in front of our house. And the phone went flying, and my spirit had just come out of my body. And when it did, I traveled inside my house, and everything in my house had this burnt gold look to it. And I knew that it was my house, but everything in my house was not my stuff. The curtains weren't my curtains. The furniture wasn't my curtains. And I was sort of, well, I want to say floating, but I really wasn't floating. I was walking, but not on the ground. I was kind of walking above the ground. Mm-hmm. And I was going through the house, and I kept hearing this old-time radio show playing, like back in the 20s or 30s, like the Walton area. And I heard this radio, and I kept thinking, where is that sound? There's no power, and I didn't know. My husband wasn't in the house. My children weren't in the house. I couldn't find anybody, and I didn't know where did all this weird furniture come from, and what happened? And this is my house, but this stuff is not my stuff.
I thought this was so interesting when I read about it. Do you think you went back in time to a previous owner and previous furnishings?
Yeah, it was really it was very odd, and it was almost unnerving. And when I got to the point of being almost to the panic point, that's when everything seemed to change, and I went into these beautiful pink and gold clouds. And to answer your question, yes, I do believe that I had gone back in time. It was very odd. And but then I did go into these pink and gold clouds, but I didn't go up and I didn't go down. I went laterally. I went sideways. And I moved very quickly through those clouds. But there was this huge presence with me, very huge presence. And it was a very loving presence. And it just, I became one with this presence. And it just, the love was just beyond. There's no words to describe that love. And as I was going through these clouds, very quickly, I got to the end of the clouds, and at the end of the clouds, there were these two people that I met there, and they were two young men, seemed to be in their late 20s, early 30s, and they were my two at first I thought they were angels, and they were wearing this ivory linen clothing, and it had a very tight weave pattern, and it stuck out, and I don't know why it stuck out, but it stuck out. And but these two were not angels. They were my two brothers who had died as babies, and we had they looked like my young versions of my dad, and it was just amazing that they greeted me, and it was like a family reunion. It was just amazing to see my two brothers.
Wow!
And once they greeted me, then we ended up walking into this beautiful garden, and everything was just so magnificently beautiful. And the colors were so rich and vibrant, the flowers and the trees and the grass, and it was like the most beautiful spring day you would ever multiply that by 10,000. And there was water, streams, and trees and flowers, and the reds were redder, and the yellows were more yellow, and the pinks were more pink, and there were birds singing. But what was more interesting about that was that everything had a sound. Like the leaves had a sound, and the grass had a sound, and the each color had a sound, and when you put all of those individual sounds together, it sounded like a symphony, an orchestra, and it was the most magnificent orchestra I have ever heard. It was like everything was singing praises to God. It was just absolutely the most magnificent thing I've ever heard.
Wow.
But then after that, we walked a little bit further, and there were more people that seemed to gather, and these people knew me and I knew them, but I didn't know where I knew them from. And but this huge presence was still with me, and this presence was formless, but the love was just still pouring out onto me and into me, and but then there was like a movie screen and an old-fashioned reel, and I began to see pictures like an old-fashioned movie, and it was my life review, and they showed me my life, and it moved very quickly, and but there was no judgment whatsoever, and that was very interesting to me, very new to me, and I was really happy about that. And I found that was a revelation, that there was no judgment whatsoever, only love, only love, and huge love, very, very huge love. But I looked at my brothers and I thought, is that it? Because it was over like in a blink of an eye. It was really fast. And they were kind of grinning at me, and I thought, that's it? That's all of it? And I thought, there's got to be more. And I thought, wow, my life must be boring. And but then after that, I heard a male voice say, what you put out in the universe will come back to you. And then after that...
You're hesitating.
Oh, I heard a beep. I didn't know.
And after that?
Well, after that, that's when Jesus, that's when I saw Jesus. Okay. I saw him coming out of a beautiful grove of trees. Mm-hmm. And, wow, when I saw him, he walked up to me and he told me that he loved me and that he always had loved me, and that not to be afraid. And, well, when I saw him, all the other people that were around and my brothers, they seemed to kind of disappear. And because I only had eyes for Jesus at that point.
Now, tell me, what did he look like?
Well, he had beautiful brown eyes, olive-colored skin, and he was tall, and he had the most beautiful smile. He does not look like the blonde-haired, blue-eyed that we see on pictures.
Yes.
He had very long, dark, wavy hair and very dark, beautiful brown eyes and dark olive-colored skin.
Did he have a beard?
Yes, he did have a beard. It was a short, closely trimmed beard, and he had a dimple when he smiled. It was very beautiful, very beautiful.
And what did you talk about?
Well, he told me that he loved me and that he would always love me, had always loved me, and told me not to be afraid. And I just stared at him speechless. I just didn't even know. I was just overwhelmed by the amount of love that he had pouring out of him towards me. Mm. And I just stood there hanging, with my mouth hanging open while he professed his love for me. It was like, at that point, my brothers disappeared and everybody else disappeared because I was just staring at him. And he walked me over to this wooded glen, this beautiful wooded glen, and that's where I sat down on this log, and there was God. And God started talking to me. And
yes, now I found this to be very interesting because you saw God as an embodiment of a person.
I did, yes.
That's very unusual. Usually God is manifests as spirit or light but go ahead and describe what you saw.
Well, when I sat down, at first there was just this man sitting there, and he had black hair, shoulder-length black hair, a beard, and he had blue eyes. He was wearing a robe and sandals, and he was sitting there, and he had a stick, and he was drawing in the dirt. And he looked up at me, and as I was sitting down, and he said to me, what would you do if it was just me and you? And I was like, what? That kind of went over my head. I didn't understand what did he mean. But I knew instantly that this was God. And it was he was old. It was much older than than Jesus was. But I knew that this was God. And I, God the Father. And, when he said, what would you do if it was just me and you? And I was totally clueless what he meant by that. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, what would you do if it was just me and you? No parents, no children, no husband, no, nobody else, no one, just me and you. And I thought for a minute, and I was like, no, I would drive you crazy after the first 10 minutes. That would just, I don't think that would work. And so he said, well, before that, he said, well, come with me and let me show you something. So we got up and we walked for a few minutes, and he showed me the whole universe. It was kind of like he waved his hand, and it was like taking a zip, like taking a zipper and just opening up the world. And he showed me the whole universe, and there was nothing but swirling gases and sparkling stars and spinning planets, and there was nothing, just this whole vast universe. And that's when I looked at him and I said, oh my gosh, that's huge. No, I don't think so. That after 10 minutes, that would drive you crazy. You would hate me after 10 minutes, but just me and you and all of this. That's just too big, and he just smiled at me, and he was so patient and so gentle, and I thought, wow, okay. So then we walked back over, and we sat back down on the log, and I noticed this tree that was sitting in front of me, and I saw this tree, and I was looking at it, and I noticed the details and the little life-giving veins in the leaves, and I noticed the details of the trunk and the roots and the ground, and what I saw was not just the tree, but the individual parts that make up the whole part of the tree. And then my view expanded further, and I could see everything and how everything connected and how everything was important to everything, and I studied all of this, and I think that's what he was wanting me to see, how everything was connected to everything else and how important everything was,
So you were the manifestation of everything at that moment to God, so that it was just you and him.
Right.
Because of the connection.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
But then I come up with this this one thing, and I don't even know why I said it, because I've never read the Quran in my life. I know nothing about the Islam tradition. I know nothing about this. I've never even seen the book. But I looked at God and I said, God, your 100th name in the book of the Quran is God is everywhere, God is nowhere, and God is in me. And he said, yes, that's right. And I was like, oh my. So I looked back at the tree and I said, God, you're in this tree. You made this tree. So when I look at this tree, I see you. And he said, yes. And I was like, okay. So God, I started thinking about my parents, and I said, so God, then I went back to, and I said about the tree, I said, God, you made this, did I just say that? You made this tree.
Yes.
You're in this, okay. So then I said, so God, you made my parents, you're in my parents. When I see my parents, I see you. And he said, yes. And so then I said, you were in my husband. You made my husband. You're in my husband, so when I see my husband, I see you. He said, yes. So I started thinking further, and I started seeing, okay, there are people in this world who are cruel. They hurt other people. But yet, God, you made these people. You are in these people. So when I see these people, I see you. He said, yes, that's right. So he smiled at me and he said, "Now I have a question for you." He said, "What do you see when you look in the mirror?" So I said, "Well, my normal response would be me, just me, nobody important, just me." But that's not an acceptable answer. You just don't say that to the Creator of all things, you know. So I said, "Well, God, you made me, you're in me, so when I look in the mirror, I see you." And he said, "Yeah, that's right." And he was so happy. I mean, I've never seen such joy in any person's face in my life. So I was just thinking, wow, that's really awesome. I said the right answer, you know. And so I guess what he taught me was that, and it's something that I'd always had difficulty with, because I guess in my adult life I had been taught by other people that I needed their approval to be happy, and to find the goodness in myself was other people. But what God was teaching me was that I didn't need other people's approval, that I could find God's beauty in myself, and that I am special, and that I am beautiful, and that I needed to remind myself that God doesn't make junk, that He doesn't create mistakes, and that He loves me and sees me with perfect love, and that even though I'm an imperfect being, that His love makes me, you know, makes my soul shine beautifully, you know, and that I don't have to struggle with low self-esteem, and that He loves me being just who I am.
Yes. And what happened after that?
Well, so he was sitting there drawing with a stick, and he was teaching me how to trust him, because I had learned in my adult life how hard it was to trust people. So I looked into his eyes, and his eyes were the bluest blue I had ever seen in my life. So I was looking beyond the surface, and I could see, when I saw blue, I saw the cleanness. I looked into his soul for just a minute, and I could see the beauty and the cleanness of his soul, and I saw he was spotless, and I could see just the purity and the holiness of his soul for just one pure second. And I was able, the fortress walls that I had built up around my heart and my soul just crumbled. And I learned that I could trust God, even though I had learned how not to trust. For just that 1 second, I learned that I could trust Him above all people, above all else. I could trust Him. And I just felt all of the walls that I had built up over the years had just crumbled within that 1 second. And then that bonding that took place between us, I could feel my soul just soaring. And then he went. I turned my eyes away, and he went back to drawing or doodling, whatever those little symbols that he was doodling with that stick. And then
Sharon,
yes.
I'm going to have to stop you here because we're out of time, but I'd like to be able to invite you back for next Monday's show, if that's all right with you, if that fits your schedule.
I would be honored. Thank you. Yes.
I would love to continue this conversation. So why don't we plan on doing that? And in the few seconds we have left, tell folks how they can get your book.
My book is on Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com. If you look up Sharon Milliman, A Song in the Wind, Near-Death Experience, that's on Amazon.
Very good. That's good. So we'll talk again next week. And I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today. If the audience would like to listen to this again or any of our past shows, just go to our website at nderadio.org. And for more information about the work of IANDS and our upcoming conference in Denver, check out that website, iands.org. And tune in next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, for more NDE Radio with Sharon Milliman. And this is Lee Witting saying thanks for listening.